Okay. Let's start, shall we? Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome and thank you for coming to this session on sustainable ocean management, officially entitled Empowering the Future Leaders of Sustainable Ocean Management. My name is Linda Solsson Dahlbeck. I work for the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and based here in Tromsø, supporting the Norwegian chairship of the Arctic Council and supporting the general Arctic policy from the Norwegian government. So we have a packed schedule, lots of exciting speakers today, so I suggest we make a start. The State Secretary is going to deliver some opening remarks. I know she's at the premises, but I think they were just a little bit delayed coming in this morning due to the weather, so hopefully we'll see her here momentarily. Perhaps, Morten, if you want to... Oh, excellent. Then I suggest we start with Morten Høglund, of course. Everyone knows the Senior Arctic Official Chair for the Arctic Council, and he will speak about the Norwegian chairship and our priorities and what we want to do as chair of the Arctic Council to address ocean and young people in the Arctic and how we can work with sustainable ocean management. So, welcome to the stage, Morten.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I see the State Secretary, but if their State Secretary is okay, I make the comments first, and then I'll give you the floor so you can just relax for a little bit. We're so happy and pleased that people are making it up from Oslo today. It's a pleasure to be here today to speak about ecosystem-based management and empowering future leaders. This session today touches on several important topics for the Norwegian chairship, the ocean, and empowering young people to tackle the many challenges we face. The Arctic Ocean is in a phase of extraordinary transition. There are many different changes, such as Arctic warming, retreating sea ice, and an increase in human activity that are leading to far-reaching consequences for Arctic marine ecosystems and the people and communities that rely on them. With so many changes happening simultaneously, it's important that we don't only look at these issues in isolation. The ecosystem approach to management, EA or EBM for short, is a concept that has been around for decades. A key element of EBM is that holistic approaches are applied to managing fast-changing and interlinked Arctic ecosystems. EBM has been on the Arctic Council's agenda for a number of years. The Council's Protection of the Arctic Marine Environment Working Group, or PAME for short, leads much of the Council's EBM work. Several comprehensive assessments and products have been developed on this topic, including the framework for implementing the ecosystem approach to management of human activities in Arctic marine and coastal environments. The Norwegian chairship, together with the Norwegian Institute of Marine Research, is convening the third international conference on the ecosystem approach to management in Arctic large marine ecosystems. The conference, titled Ecosystem-Based Management in a Rapidly Warming Arctic, invites scientists, knowledge holders, governing bodies, students, and others to share experiences and challenges in implementing EA. The conference will delve deeper into the topic that we are here to speak about today. It will take place in Tromsø from 15th to 18th April this year, and more information can be found on the flyers in the back of the room. Registration is open, and I invite all of you to attend And we have an agreement with airlines, they will be flying. When we talk about sustainable ocean management, it is vitally important to involve young people. The impacts of a changing Arctic Ocean are not just projections and data. They are deeply personal and relevant to the young people who call the Arctic home. Empowering young people in the Arctic to take an active role in addressing these challenges is not merely an act of benevolence, it's a necessity. Their fresh perspectives, innovative ideas, and drive are invaluable assets in producing data and research, finding sustainable solutions, and informing policies that will define the future of the region. The Norwegian chairship takes this seriously, and we hope by shining a spotlight on young people in the Arctic during our chairship, we can take concrete steps to meaningfully engage young people in Arctic discourse. One such initiative supported by the Norwegian chairship of the Arctic Council was the Norwegian Polar Institute's Arctic Ocean research cruise in the summer of last year. The research cruise hosted students from Arctic nations where they gained hands-on experience in several different fields and research areas. They participated in data acquisition and collected material and data for their own research. We are happy to have some of the students from that cruise on our panel today. We will also later share a video from the cruise that gives a brief overview and features interviews with some of the participants, which you will see a little bit later. With that, I thank you all for being here, and we wish the panel a productive discussion on this important topic. And I'm very pleased now to give the floor to the State Secretary, Maria Varthe-Rizan, who will give her opening remarks. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So nice to see you. Wonderful to finally be here. It took me 7 attempts. All good things, obviously, are 7. And where there is will, there is eventually a flight ticket and a possibility to take off and land, which I have done successfully. And so I'm very, very happy to be here with all of you, with friends of the Arctic here at Arctic Frontiers, which is, I have to say, it feels like coming home. Because I don't know if many of you know this, but I've worked at Arctic Frontiers for 4 years. I've lived in Tromsø, studied in Tromsø, so this is very close to my heart. And the Arctic is also, and I often reflect about what does the Arctic look like based on different people's, countries' perspective. There are many different views on the Arctic, and that is also perhaps why many think that there are many Arctics. Well, there might be many different words for the Arctic, but the Arctic is the same. Although, for some, the Arctic is perhaps an exotic destination for a trip sometime during a lifetime. It's an outpost with very vulnerable, dramatic nature. But also, as for, I'm sure, many of us, as it has been for me, the Arctic is home. The Arctic is where we have our livelihoods, our societies, communities, where we need to feel safe, where we need to have something meaningful to do, to exist. And it is also, I've worked also quite a lot with climate politics. What I've realized that Arctic in many ways is a window into the future. As we know, the climate change with dramatic, unpredictable weather patterns, as we have seen examples of now, are happening faster, are more dramatic in the Arctic than anywhere else in the world. It's warming 4 times faster than anywhere else in the world. And so in many ways, it's a dramatic way of kind of predicting what can happen in the rest of the world if we do not manage to adapt, if we do not manage to have effective policies which will help us tackle the climate change. And so it has been a cliche almost to say that what happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic, but I think it's even more true that what happens anywhere else in the world doesn't stay there. It ends up in the Arctic, either by ocean currents or by air. And in many ways, Arctic is mostly ocean, and so is the world. But I think it's easy to forget that sometimes. So when I look at this audience, I'm sure that many of you could have come up to this stage and each held a presentation about why the ocean is important to us. Why is the ocean important to us? Well, it provides us with oxygen we breathe. It is a bearer of tradition, culture, history. It is the main source or the food cabinet of the planet, so to say, in different direct and indirect ways. So actually, if we reflect on the meaning of the ocean, it is so core to our very existence that without the ocean, there would be no us. It is the mother of all ecosystems. But friends, we have to be honest, every one of us, that if the ocean is the mother of all ecosystems, well, we haven't always been treating our mother the way we should have, the way she deserves. To take a step back and look at the big picture, the geopolitics of the world today, we see that for many, many years there has been a sense of Arctic exceptionalism, meaning that geopolitics of the rest of the world haven't quite spread to the Arctic. We have managed to preserve a sense of cooperation, a sense of togetherness, despite what has happened in other parts of the world. But with unprovoked, unjust, unlawful aggression, which Russia is currently carrying out in Ukraine, everything has changed. There has been a watershed moment for Arctic collaboration, as well as for cooperation in the rest of the world, and in Europe particularly. So this has taken a toll on the cooperation in the Arctic, and we see it in the Arctic forests. We see it in Barents Euro-Arctic Council. We see it in Østersjørådet, the Council of the Baltic Seas, and of course also for the linchpin of the Arctic cooperation, the Arctic Council, as Morten has already described with wise words. It has taken a toll. We all know that when the war broke out, Russia had the chairship of the Arctic Council. And naturally, all activity had to be taken down. So it was first when Norway took over the chairship, we managed to kind of get from off the pause mode into a mode where we are able to do what we can in not a business as usual way, but in a way which makes it possible to keep the structure relevant. And for the Arctic Council, in contrast to other types of cooperation, regional and multilateral, for the Arctic Council, the sole purpose is the common Arctic perspective. So the fact that all of the Arctic states and indigenous people are permanent participants of the Council is what makes it valuable. If we lose that, then the Council doesn't have the purpose. So the core interest, the core Arctic togetherness, the core perspectives which the Arctic Council can share with the rest of the world, it is at the backbone of the very existence of Arctic Council, which makes it the linchpin of the Arctic cooperation. And we cannot lose it. So what we need to do is to find out how can we provide the structure with just the right amount of oxygen to keep it relevant, to keep it moving forward, to preserve it for the future. And as has already been mentioned, ocean is a part of the strategic priorities which the Norwegian chairship has chosen for our period of chairing the Arctic Council. And that's one of the cooperation tracks. It's important, but the main purpose is to keep the structure alive. Because there will come a time, sometime, where it is very much needed and is very much possible to take up the cooperation in a way which is business as usual, as it is not right now. So ocean is a key priority for the Norwegian chairship because the need to preserve ocean, the need to produce knowledge about the ocean, the need for it is still there despite of geopolitics. And we have the benefit of the fact that this is also an area where it is possible to continue cooperation. So we need it. It is an issue of a common circumpolar interest. And it is possible to scale down to a level using right now a written procedure where it makes sense to continue the cooperation, and it's good. And about borders, I have also already touched on it, but climate change doesn't care about borders. It doesn't care about geopolitics. And the fact that geopolitics are the way they are doesn't change geography either. Despite Russia being in a state where it is now, where it does not respect democracy or the rights of sovereign states, it is still an Arctic country. It still is the largest Arctic country, so what happens there affects the rest of the Arctic. We need to cooperate, find patterns in a way which is, once more, not business as usual, in order to have the largest Arctic states in the same cooperational forest working groups projects to keep the momentum. And in this, knowledge is key. Knowledge production is key. The knowledge gaps we must fill in order to move forward with developing a sustainable ocean economy, which we truly need now, is key. So cooperation must continue. And there is a lot we do not know about the ocean, and it doesn't mean we will not find it out. It means that we need to go cautiously forward in producing the knowledge we need. And with ecosystem-based management in a rapidly warming Arctic, and we know what the research of the Arctic Council has meant for IPCC, IPBES, for the common human knowledge about the ocean and how to preserve and how to conserve, how to use sustainably in order to develop our economies in the way in which they are able to meet the global targets of the COP28, of the COP15. We need to produce this knowledge, and much of this production happens here. So I hope that the cooperation will continue in a way which makes it relevant for future generations, which makes it relevant for a future sustainable ocean economy where balance is important. But at the core of all of this is people, and that it is relevant to people, the people of the Arctic, and also the people of the rest of the world, because as my point, which has already been made many times, what happens here doesn't stay here, and what happens everywhere else in the world affects what happens here. So we need to pull together, we need to preserve what we have in the best way possible, and we need to help each other succeeding with that. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay, so thank you so much to the State Secretary and to Morten Høglund, Senior Arctic Official Chair, for setting stage and to highlight the importance of sustainable ocean management. Now we will show a video from the research expedition that Morten talked about before, so please enjoy.
Arctic is important because it supports many communities throughout the circumpolar, and so I think it's really important that we learn as much as we can about the Arctic.
It's important to me because it's a part of my culture and traditions as a Sea Sami people, and just that it's going to be a part of my future with the study I'm doing now.
My family are all fishermen, so the changes in climate and changes to the fisheries, the changes to water temperatures, to fish migrations, all plays a pretty important role in Alaska, not just commercially, but for livelihoods, for subsistence.
The Arctic is an especially vulnerable environment, and even though a lot of the anthropogenic activities don't happen directly in the Arctic, we see drastic changes and impacts of human activities in the Arctic.
Like, when we really get down to it, I think it's just like, you know, it's a part of our home, and I love our home.
So I'm really excited because I want to pursue academia and I really want to pursue polar research as well. So this is a great chance to be able to see the different challenges that face with Arctic research, as well as being able to collaborate and meet with different people that have been doing this a lot longer than I have.
It's really great to actually be able to see the ecosystems that I'm studying in real life. So that is really, really, really cool. And it's great to learn all kinds of new sampling techniques that we're using on the ship.
I'm especially looking forward to being in this very international and interdisciplinary environment, learn from others and interact with a lot of people from different backgrounds, different disciplines. And I also see a lot of potential to broaden my horizon and learn new ways to look at things.
I think things like this cruise are amazing. This is a great opportunity. I mean, we're here for 3 weeks together working on different scientific aspects up here in the Arctic. We build a strong network among each other. We help each other. We learn from each other, and we learn from experts who have been in the field for decades. So yeah, I think something like this is a great opportunity, and I think it's the more chances we have to get together in person and build actual physical strong relationships, the more impact we can have.
To truly appreciate the Arctic, I think that you need to see the Arctic, and with that, how it relates to young people, I think that there should be more opportunities for student research aboard research vessels in the Arctic.
Really, the youth and the opportunity for collaboration amongst my generation is something that gives me hope. I'm seeing a lot of strong interest and energy to work together and to collaborate on not only trying to find solutions, but being creative at finding opportunities to just work together.
Everything is changing, but we don't know what is coming. And it will look different. Things will disappear, but there will come new things. I think I just have trust in how ingenious life is. Life will find a way, and that's what gives me hope.
So now I would like to invite Nalan Koch on the stage. Nalan has been employed at the Norwegian Polar Institute since 1999, where she currently serves as a special advisor for external relations. And before that, you were the research director at the Polar Institute for 12 years. Nalan has a PhD in marine geology and paleoceanography, and has extensive experience working with polar matters, governmental advisory panels, taking part in governmental advisory panels and international engagements. So please take the floor, Nalan.
Is it on?
Uh-huh. Now it's on. Ooh. Okay, thank you, Linda, for the kind words. And an excellent video by Jessica Cook. I think we should give her a clap. Yeah. No, okay. I'm just waiting for the slides. And then how do I go back? Can we go back one slide? Yes, thank you. Now, this cruise, as we heard, was a cool cruise for our students. But I have been out at sea for since 1988. That tells you something about how old I am. But this was the coolest cruise for myself. And that is due to the students. So the Arctic Ocean Cruise, which took place in August 2023, last year, provided an opportunity for students and early career professionals to gain hands-on experience alongside experienced scientists and experts from the Norwegian Polar Institute and 2 Arctic Council working groups, the Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program and the protection of the Arctic marine environment. The cruise was organized in conjunction with the Norwegian chairship of the Arctic Council, and which places a focus on the ocean, climate, and environment, youth engagement, and indigenous peoples, among other priorities. Yes. As we have been hearing today and before, the Arctic surface temperature has increased 3 to 4 times faster than the global average. And with ongoing climate change, the Arctic Ocean is in fast transit towards an ice-free ocean during the summer. Svalbard, and not all of the Arctic, shows a heterogeneous picture. Some parts of the Arctic is warming more than the other parts. And the Svalbard, Northern Barents Sea, and the Nansen Basin are some of these areas that are experiencing the greatest changes with far-reaching impacts. However, the marine ecosystem in the Arctic Ocean is understudied, and in this environment of rapid change, we urgently need more data and understanding of these changes. Here I have pictures of 2 cruises we have had in 2022 and 2023 on board our research icebreaker Kronprins Haakon to the North Pole, basically. It was easy traveling to the central Arctic Ocean during the past 2 years. The ice, as you can see below there, the ice was thin, it was sparse, there was lots of leads, so it was not the Arctic Ocean which we have seen before. It's not the Arctic Ocean we know of. It's a new Arctic Ocean that is forming right in front of our eyes. So climate challenges and changes, they know no borders, as we have heard also from our State Secretary. Diversity was therefore a priority when organizing this cruise so that students could build international connections. We had 29 cruise participants, and we had 14 students and early career professionals from different Arctic countries, cultures, and backgrounds, which came together and set sail for this Arctic Ocean cruise. And each person walked on board with a different background and discipline, from ancient DNA, snow crab monitoring, and sea ice deformation to mercury monitoring and Sami languages and more. So they have on board, the program was designed so that each participant gained experience in the diverse fields of physical and biological oceanography, sea ice, pelagic ecosystem, and contaminants. An interactive series of talks and discussions on Arctic changes, issues, strategies, policies was an important part of this cruise and their learning. Students also got to present their own studies, exchange their experiences, and network with fellow participants. Arctic climate change and its effects on ecosystems and communities isn't something that can be tackled in scientific silos, nor is it effective to fully explore these topics with science alone. So collaboration between the disciplines and cooperation with Arctic communities and the indigenous peoples is essential to gain more knowledge about these understudied ecosystems. Thank you.
For those words. So next up, we have Liz Jørgensen. Liz will give an overview of ecosystem-based management, and she's the perfect person to speak about this, of course, because she's the principal scientist with more than 20 years of experience working on these topics in the Institute of Marine Research here in Norway. So she leads the international ICES Pisces Pain working group, identifying ecosystem-based and ecosystem risk in the Central Arctic Ocean, and in the Arctic Council working group, the protection of the Arctic marine environment. She recently became the co-lead for the expert group developing the ecosystem approach to management in the large marine ecosystems. And it's in that role that you're here today, so welcome up to the stage, Liz.
So do you hear me? Do you hear me? No. So why don't you hear me? Do you want me to shift to the other one? So now you hear me. It's muted. So yes, I'm here on the stage today to talk, and I have this incredible privilege to actually be talking to our young students that you saw on the video right now. And I think that is very wonderful. So if we can get the first slide up. My talk will be about ecosystem-based management. So it's a crash course or kick talk, pep talk on ecosystem-based management. You have no presentation. So what I can start saying is that ecosystem-based management is about both policy, the management policy, but is also about science, so finding the knowledge. So how do we work on these two actually pretty independent but widely separated world forum? So policy is about implementing or taking care of multiple human activities that is going on the sea. This is really hard to do this talk without my presentation, but yeah, it's there. So ecosystem-based management, what is it and how far have we come in implemented it? So this is what I will talk about, and this is also what we will talk about at the conference. So next slide, please. It's mine to do, okay. So the whole goal with ecosystem-based management, here's a full definition. It is to achieve sustainable use of ecosystem goods and services and maintain at the same time the ecosystem integrity. So in short, we can use the marine ecosystem, but we cannot harm the ecosystem in a critical way. So that's the whole goal of ecosystem-based management. So what is then the government responsibility? Well, that is to do a comprehensive, integrated management of human activities. So yes, we can use the oceans to get food for traffic, tourism, and all these things, but we cannot harm it. and the governance is about managing the human activity. So ecosystem-based management is about managing human activities, and that is the governance responsibility. How do we do that? How do the governance know what is then critical to the ecosystem? Well, they have to base that on knowledge, and that knowledge is from the best available scientific and traditional knowledge about the ecosystem and its dynamics. So somewhere we need to understand what is happening in the ecosystem, because we need to identify what is happening out there in order to take action on influences that are critical to the health of the ecosystem. So in order to make the governance be able to manage human activities, we need a forum that can feed it with monitoring of when critical things are happening to the ecosystem. So why? Because we would like to use the ecosystem without harming the ecosystem. So that is what this is about. And you also see that I have put up ecosystem in a special word. So what is an ecosystem? Is an ecosystem something I can have here in my hand? Is an ecosystem inside an aquarium? Or does it have to fill the entire room here? Is it a whole ocean? Or do we talk about the whole globe when we are talking about the ecosystem? Well, a lot of thoughts has gone into this. And back in 2013, we'll make some delineation of these 18 large marine ecosystems. We call it the LMEs, large marine ecosystem. So they approximately make up what we can talk about the shelf ecosystem, a deep ecosystem, and so on. But if you study these more carefully, you will also see that some of them are purely national responsibility. So number 17 and 16, 6, 7, and 8 is only national. So one nation taking care of their own system. But for example, number 5 and number 12, number 14 and 15 is bilateral. So number 5, the Barents Sea, is a bilateral cooperation between Norway and Russia. And if we look at number 15, that will be a bilateral cooperation between Canada and Greenland. So if we look at number 13, the biggest of these large marine ecosystems, it's a multinational ecosystem that also include the high seas. So the nations around having the national water inside the Central Arctic Ocean, but we also have the high seas. So it's complex. So it's a really geographical, political entity into these management units. So this conference here that will happen in April is talking about, so how far has the state or countries actually come in order to implement this ecosystem-based management within these large marine ecosystems? So that will be the first day, number 1 here, that we are asking the government. And we have invited all the nations that is around the Central Arctic Ocean to talk about this. So day number 1 will be about how to gather the knowledge that we can provide to the governance. And that is about monitoring and assessing the ecosystem and its human activities. It's about data, research, monitoring, and all the methods we need to implement in order to extract the information that can point out when human activities is getting critical to the ecosystem, so we can provide this information. So that will be our day number 2, that we will look into the science and knowledge base part of it. And then in day number 3, because what you see here is that governance is making governance on behalf of the nations. But knowledge or science are free. They are independent and will not be instructed by the governance. So we have a free entity, a scientific entity on one hand side, and also governance that is working on its own. But in some way, they will need to cooperate. And here, that will be day number 3 that we are talking about communication. We have to have overarching goal and sub-goals. An overarching goal is that human activities in the large marine ecosystem cannot harm the ecosystem. So that will be the goals, and all the sub-goals that is following this. Also, knowledge have to provide the advice that points out the critical aspect with human activities in the ocean in order to pass that to government so they can read it and understand what management action that has to be taken and then do that. So in the center, you will see the stakeholder engagement, because all these decisions that is then made by governance will have an impact on the cultures that is living in and off the Arctic. So how do they then get engaged in these activities around? And I think that is much about that. So to reach these goals of ecosystem-based management, you understand we need cooperation, because we need transdisciplinarity in order to understand the entire ecosystem. We need cross-sectorial aspect, because we have to look at all the human activities. We also need to bring in all the working group within the Arctic Council and other working group observers in order to make the ecosystem-based management work. And we need the nation and international work in order to do this. So this is the full picture of the ecosystem-based management. So Nalan, it's not really a simple task, but it's big. What do you think the young people would think about that?
We'll ask them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. So it's time for the panel discussion, and we will delve a little bit deeper into the topic of ecosystem-based management. But just to note that when I call up your names, please take a seat. There's supposed to be seats, right? Or are we standing? We'll be standing, okay. Yeah, please come up on stage as I introduce you. But let me just first say that we will try to have some time for a Q&A, question and answers after the session, and also closing remarks from the director of the Norwegian Institute of Marine Research, Nils Gunnar Kamste. So back to the panel. Let me first welcome back up on stage Nalan Koch, who will be the moderator today. And then for our first panelist, I'm happy to introduce Gunn-Britt Retter, head of the Arctic and Environmental Unit at the Sami Council. So Ms. Retter is a Sami who is based in Norway and has extensive background in academia, as she's trained in teaching from the Sami University of Applied Sciences, and you have a degree from University of Wales as well, as I understand. But she uses this academic background as well as her background growing up on the land and the sea to focus her professional career on incorporating indigenous peoples' knowledge into both research and action related to climate change, biodiversity, language, pollution, and natural resource management. Her main role there's a lot. Her main role as head of Arctic and Environment Unit is to coordinate the Sami Council's participation in the Arctic Council and the UNCBD and the UNFCCC. So welcome up. Our next panelist is Mario Acquarone, who is the Deputy Secretary at the Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program, AMAP, and one of our working groups at the Arctic Council. He began his career on Arctic matters in the National Environment Research Institute in Denmark and Greenland Institute of Natural Resources, focusing on marine animals and seabirds in relation to management. And he has since been active in the interface between science policy and natural resource management. So welcome up on stage, you as well. The next panelist is then Charlotte Carrier-Belleau. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Thank you. Who has she's a postdoc at Laval University in Canada and Trinity College in Ireland, and she is an aquatic biologist with an interest in understanding the dynamics of multiple stressors, interactions, legacy effects, and tipping points within ecosystems, particularly in the Arctic. Welcome up. And then we have Einar Petur Jonsson, who is a PhD candidate at the University of Iceland. Yeah, thank you. At the Marine and Freshwater Research Institute. He uses experiments to look at marine organisms in response to multiple stressors. Yes. Next, we have Connie Melovidov, who is a Nangan, Aleut, and Chamorro. And she was raised in St. Paul Island in Alaska, and currently lives in Anchorage, Alaska, working with her tribe, the Aleut community of St. Paul Island, and she has a master's in studying fisheries at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And her focus is on seasonal movements and distributions of snow crabs in the Bering Sea. And then the last panelist is Malou Plateau Johansen from Nuuk, Greenland, who is currently a master's student at the University of Tromsø, where she's studying Arctic marine ecology and fish diversity in northeast Greenland. Welcome up on stage. It's crowded, but I'll make some room for you and hand over to Nalan. Thanks.
My microphone on? Yes, now it's on, yes. So let's start by welcoming our wonderful panel with some applause. And we have been hearing from Liz about the ecosystem-based management. And it is complex, it's large, but it's important also for us to hear from our panelists their take on the ecosystem-based management, what you think it is, and how important it is, and why is it important. So, who would like to start? Yes, Charlotte?
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. So Liz has done an amazing presentation, so I'm not going to repeat what it is, but I'm going to talk about 3 concepts that I find really important because it includes so many concepts in there. The first concept that I think is really important, and that is going to be probably the only way moving forward, is the holistic approach. So instead of focusing on one species, one ecosystem, or one human activity, it includes so many things in there. And it requires ultimately different approaches. And different approaches mean collaborations. So I think this is one very important aspect. The other one, I think EBM also should be implemented because it emphasizes on flexibility and adaptability. And the Arctic is changing so much, so rapidly, that I think it's also going to be the only way to move forward. And finally, EBM also incorporates the precautionary principle. And once again, with all the changes that we're going to be facing, I think it's also a very important concept in the EBM, and that's why I think it should be implemented. Anyone?
Yeah, I got some info. I'll go ahead. We're very courteous here. Yeah, I'm oops. Just wanted to add to that, like, it's maybe interesting also to be looking at an approach that is like, I mean, you can explain it. It's pretty clear. We know what we have to do. It's super complicated, but you know, it's something we can do, hopefully. But it's a change in how we interact with nature, and it's quite often that when we present recommendations to change how we interact with nature, we think, wow, that's too difficult. We'll just carry on with capitalism as the way it is, you know. So it's kind of nice to get a little, like, in a box how to do this. Like, this is an approach. This is how we can tackle this, you know. And we're like, okay, let's check this out. Maybe it's something doable, which sometimes isn't the feeling we get. That's what I wanted to add.
And I just want to add on, I mean, for a long time, you know, scientists have been using a single species approach, and so I feel like now is a really great time to start implementing an ecosystem approach because we know everything in the ecosystem is tied together, so it's a really good time for us to kind of work toward those solutions.
Yes, thank you. And just to continue in those lines, from a Sami perspective, I find this ecosystem-based management and this approach more in line what I consider the indigenous people's way of thinking, as was already said, in a more holistic approach. So that's why I immediately, when I saw it was part of maybe negotiating the definition in Arctic Council uses, it was very easy from my perspective to embrace this approach. And also, Yang moves away from the silo approach to management. And it's also for me important that it involves various interests, and also us as indigenous peoples are embraced by that approach as being not stakeholders, but I would say right holders. And another important aspect is what Liz emphasized, also showing the definition. It should be based on the best available knowledge, and also the traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples is part of that definition. And I also think the importance of this is or maybe more of a question that I hope we can bring on from here is that, is the EBM, does it represent the transformative change that the world keeps calling for? You go to the UN fora, they call for transformative change. And what is that? And to quote the Ocean Panel's Sustainable Ocean Planning report, it says to ensure that plans are not merely a continuation of business as usual, but rather an enhanced ambition in line with the transformations. And that would also require a change in the mindset around management.
Okay. Oh, okay. Following indigenous knowledge, like there's this. I'm from Greenland and I'm Inuit, and we have this myth about the Sesumap Angna in Greenlandic and Setna in Inuktitut, which translates to the mother of the sea, which is if we don't treat the ocean right, she will withhold the animals within the ocean until Angakok, a shaman, comes and spiritually combs her hair so she can free, animals again for humanity, which is kind of what we're seeing here. We are not treating nature right, and we can see it in nature. Well, like of declining stocks of fish and other species.
Well, I suppose it's my turn. I hear on the title of the session, Empowering the Future Leaders of Sustainable Ocean Management. And I think it's important to think about what future generations of scientists, the present generations, and maybe even the future generations after you, are going to be thinking about when they think about ocean management. One point that I would make is that the ecosystem that we are thinking about to try to establish can be a better ecosystem than what we see now, that is maybe already endangered, that maybe has already been exploited from centuries. So I would encourage young minds to think about what kind of world they want to live on, and what kind of world, what kind of systems they want to establish in order to have a fair and a healthy ecosystem view of the management. This morning I was, by accident, I wouldn't say by mistake, but by accident I went into another room, the one I was supposed to go. The app is not very good for me. And they were talking about environmental justice. And they were talking about especially blue justice, about coastal communities and how to establish it. There is a project here at the Fram Center that talks about environmental justice and blue justice. And they had 3 principles that were to be taken into consideration for environmental justice. And one of them was recognition. And the recognition was recognition of participation, what kind of actors are acting into a management system. So recognizing the rights of people to of to have a say in what's happening is very important. And even though we are saying, sometimes I hear it, it's not something I like, but they say in some fora that there are not many indigenous people that are actually using the Central Arctic Ocean. And I'm saying, yeah, but how many non-indigenous people are actually autochthonous of the Central Arctic Ocean? So we all have a say in the Central Arctic Ocean. The other part is about the procedures, and the procedures, the other concept after recognition is procedure, and the procedure is how to achieve this system, and that's very important. It has to be a co-creation of the procedure as well. And then there is the distribution, and the distribution of the benefits. And it's not just the profits, I'm just saying, like, it shouldn't be just a capitalistic profit, but there are many values, and there is an open discussion among the people for the recognition. So I really would like to encourage the emerging leaders to think big and to think about what kind of world they would like to have in the future and manage towards that.
Much, and thank you to all of you for your reflections on the ecosystem-based management. But what we are hearing is, and what Liz has been telling us is, actually here we are having a change of view on the ecosystem, how we manage it. And it's much more complicated than it has been before. And we are also in the natural sciences used to working and being experts on a part of the ecosystem. Now we need to pull together all our knowledge of the whole ecosystem, and not only that, but then we are also looking into the human factors into this and the value system, which you have been also pointing at. So the question also for the future, or for us to think about, how do we also teach the young generations this way of thinking? And that's why we have the young generation with us, to make sure that they still become experts on their fields, but they also need to collaborate to put that knowledge into a much larger sphere. But also we need others who will take on the task of pulling together and analyzing the data into a holistic way. So, but our challenges do not stop there. This is a mental new way of thinking about the ecosystem. But then we have a climate change that's happening very rapidly, right here, right now. So how do what are the challenges of having an ecosystem-based management and at the same time a system that is in rapid change? How do we tackle that? Because the system is not static. So,
yeah. Should I tackle this one first?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I think when we're going into just the concept of ecosystem-based management and the sort of philosophy behind it, we maybe have to adjust our mental state a little bit to be patient. For example, it's not a 4-year system. It's not something that is ever finished. It's not an end product. We're always getting more data. Like the data we have now sucks for ecosystem-based management. We have so little data, but we're always getting more. It's always getting better. So we're always making it better. So I think everything is changing fast, and we're always getting more data. And these two things make it very important for us to think about ecosystem-based management as something we don't finish, and that's okay.
Yes.
Did I just get it?
So. Yes.
Well, if nobody else, I have a lot to say, maybe. Yeah, I don't know if I can respond so much to how to change the management to in the light of the rapid changes, but I have some reflections on the concerns in management as well. And one is the lack of, I mentioned that in the knowledge foundation being important, and the lack of recognition of indigenous knowledge at both national, regional, and thus the planning level is a concern, but it's getting better, but it's still, we need to educate the whole system or ecosystem of managers to understand how to recognize indigenous knowledge or traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples. And management is about making decisions related to the human-nature relationship. And humans often coming in with different interests into the relationship, this relationship, mostly being able to speak for themselves and its interests. Nature speaks too, but her voice seems often not to be heard. The different interests are partly rooted, I think, in different needs. In some case, one might say greed, but I would also say on different values. And value being one of the 6 related elements in the framework for implementation of the ecosystem approach to management of human activities in Arctic marine and coastal environments. So the potential for disagreement and conflict and also feeling of not being recognized, engaged, or involved lies, I think, in the value element or the different understanding or different set of values people come in with. So this is rather long, but I shouldn't maybe say all of this, but I wanted to share a little bit of the Sami objective in any management is to seek balance and manage or keep this human-nature relationship. So we were doing a report, Sami Council, on the EBM values in the part of this working group that we are part of in the Arctic Council. And when the elders were encouraged to share what they think are Sami values, the Sami elders raised many important values that are linked to the relationship Sami have with their respective ecosystems. So the relationship in itself is a key value, which binds a person to their environment, its history and heritage. The relationship is reciprocal, and people benefit from the gifts of nature, which brings a responsibility to maintain a balance within the ecosystem and to safeguard the healthy environment as a foundation for all life. And I think when you come to a management, and a Sami person, when it comes to, for example, management of the Etno River, people get very upset and people get angry. And I think to understand where this anger and frustration comes from, I think the element of values is a thing the managers or who are engaged, look to the youth here, needs to try to understand. What values are you basing your anger or your frustration or your management upon? And I could say much more about the values, but realizing it's very long, but you can come to listen to the conference in April. I will elaborate more on that. Thank you.
Maybe I should, because that's a really difficult question, and you know, there's been so many things that have been said already that it's just to build off. So there is no like quick answer, right? Like, how do we implement this sort of approach? And it takes a lot. We have a lot of different knowledge holders through indigenous knowledge, through science, through, you know, community members. There's so many people who have knowledge and expertise on how we can make, you know, marine management better. I'm not gonna lie, we do need funding for these things and good managers on how, you know, this approach is gonna be taken. There's a lot of different moving parts, and so I don't have a perfect answer, and I think that there's gonna be a lot of work that's going to be involved in sort of going through this approach. And so all I can say is, continue to include youth, continue to, educate them, include them in conversations, let them be aware of the challenges that adults are facing now, because if we don't tell them and if they're not aware, how are they going to know it's an issue?
That's our mic.
Oh, yes.
Well, I don't know how much time do we have?
We have enough time. Enough time to talk.
Yeah. It is, as we all agree, a very pertinent and a very actual observation. The environment is changing and the ecosystem will change. And keeping on with the respect of the opinions and the values of the people that are participating into the management is extremely important, of course. What is also important is to have an understanding of the trade-offs and understanding of the risks of taking a common decision. So the decision has to be fair and has to be taken by everybody. But if we all decided to go somewhere, we'd all actually have some sort of risk of not getting there or going to a slightly different place. So it's important that we all take the decision together, all of the actors that are concerned, and that we understand the trade-offs, the risks. There is different kinds of risks. There is, according to precautionary principles, of course, depending on what we define as precautionary, and that is what is the basis. And then, of course, continued observations of how the system is evolving, both from the human side, because we have evolving situations, evolving institutions, evolving political situations and personal situations, and then how the ecosystem actually is evolving. So I think that this, you say, in Italian you would say that when you're building a barrel, that you have to you have to hit on the one side, but you also have to hit the circles, the girdles that take there, so that has to adjust it. So you have to go little by little in order to get a watertight barrel. Yes.
I understand you are saying that we do need to implement the basics of the ecosystem-based management, but we have to also, at the same time, be adaptive and dynamic with it, so that it's,
Can I add to this?
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. We're all saying that, I think. But you were saying, get everybody in on this. I think it's also, I just wanted to reiterate, kind of, if everybody makes a decision, everybody is responsible. Everybody has, it's their baby. And nobody can be like, oh, Norway, why did you make this decision? Because this is not going to work on the first one, because we have insufficient data. It's just going to be we're always going to be having to fix it. And so we can't be annoyed at each other. We got to start from the beginning, okay, let's do our best. Not going to work on the first one, and then we make it better, but I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to be like, yeah, Norway, I'm not doing this. Yeah.
All right. So, as we hear, we already have many wise words from both our senior participants, but also from our young generation. So the next question, and I'll come back to questions later, is how do we empower our future leaders?
Well, I think events like this, just giving the stage first to us, I find it really rewarding in a way, and it's fun to be able to speak out loud about concerns that we have. I think one thing that I also wanted to mention is any networking, collaborations, workshops, anything that is organized by the young people, for the young people, is also going to be a huge step forward. Every generation has their strength, their weaknesses, we have our own, but if we can build from bottom up and also discuss about different opportunities of collaborating together, I think it's going to be a huge way forward, especially for the Arctic, where we have all this indigenous knowledge, all this knowledge that we can use in different ways also. So I think it's going to be a huge way. And there are a few opportunities that already exist and that are put in place right now. So I think that's a huge way forward.
Yeah, it's kind of the same, but then also adding on learning from the older generation and then build on what they have worked on and what you call it, make it better or make it more innovative. Because sometimes the older generation are stuck on this is how you do it. And as a young generation, you can see the same material with new eyes and see problems or do it in a more efficient way for the same problems, which is also empowering.
Anyone else? I can't remember the question, but empowering the young generation.
Yeah, engage the youth, yeah. I just, because Malou was talking about old people, there's also, like, they don't just suck, you know. It's there is also good to be had from that. Yeah. Yeah, like Liz showed earlier when she had a really cool talk. And just what I wanted to say, like Malou was saying, like old people sometimes know stuff. And also, it's sometimes the way of life has been more friendly to nature, as many of us know, like often from our older people, just the respect with which they treat that cheese in the fridge that they just don't throw out. They get a use for it, you know. An example. But yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on the old people that Malou mentioned.
Okay, in our preparation I said that this is probably not a question I need to respond to, but one addition to the rapid change and the data, that is kind of one of these contradicting challenges, as well as the change is happening so rapidly, and Einar said there's also a lack of data, but I guess with the pace of change, it might feel like there is little data, but there is a lot of data, but it also needs to be renewed. But it's enough to make decisions or planning, so we shouldn't be stuck in the belief that there is a lack of data, because we know enough to act and start planning. And my advice to the youth, I guess, would be to remain open-minded and inclusive while being respectful and engaging with various actors, and without attempting to speak on others' behalf, because everybody needs to be involved and enabled to speak on their own behalf, and be the change that is called for. So that was my advice for that. And these old guys' advice?
I got my... Well, I think that sometimes it's difficult for the younger generation to come into the institutions that are actually giving the management advice, and that is like on a practical purpose, on a practical matter. I think that inviting younger generation to assist at least to the workings, I don't know, at ICES or any other regional fisheries management organization, or of course these events are great, but where is the advice actually produced? Where is it coming from? So if you, like Einar works at the Marine Research Institute, of course you produce the knowledge there for the management advice of some of the stocks, for example, capelin, but then you would need to go to the places where the advice is actually transformed into policy. So being aware of the process, of what the process is about, and where is it that you find your best option, that is probably what I would encourage as like an openness to invite trainees or observers or young helpers or just observation items to the meetings and to the workings.
Very good points, and most of the international programs today do have programs for the involvement of the young people.
And just a quick note to resonate the Arctic Youth Leader Summit in 2019 that said the youth is not just the future, it's also the present. So don't forget about that. It's about your lives too.
Thank you. So, Heidi, you have a question.
I actually want to say something first.
Now we have Heidi S, and then maybe you can answer afterwards. Yes? No. More than 10 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes, yeah.
Thank you very much. This is a wonderful session, and congratulations for the very successful cruise. My question is a bit thought-provoking, so don't shoot the messenger, but please, I hope it will stimulate the debate. So we've been talking for more than an hour about sustainable ocean management without really mentioning the words deep sea mining. And I think we're all aware of the decision that was just made by the Norwegian Parliament to make one step closer towards deep sea mining, perhaps exploitation. So my question is, it's a bit provoking again, that the science is clear. We have the data we need to know that the consequences of deep sea mining could be irreversible and could impact your careers for decades to come. So where did it go so wrong is my question. I think we all need to learn from our mistakes. How can we make sure to improve the way science is communicated to policymakers? How can we make sure that Norway doesn't take the final step towards deep sea mining exploitation? Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Finally, we talk about this. Okay, so both within that and then ecosystem-based management, like whatever you call it, we have to be a little bit bold as scientists, which we very often are not, in putting our foot down and saying, no, this is not happening, or no, we are cooperating. For example, if we go into the politics, like Norway saying they're like pro science, but then other countries anyway, we're not cooperating that well in the Arctic. But regarding that point, it's so annoying to see, again, this is what scientists are always annoyed about, we said it wasn't a good idea, and then just politics triumph. So how do we stop that, I mean, are we going to change the world structure, where the power balance lies, What can we do? We can be more definitive. We can be more angry. We can go protest. But then money. I mean, I'm not gonna lie here. Then it's just like Norway has a lot of money and they want more money and they go for it. And it's been said, deep sea mining probably not a good idea. And then it's just all right, whatever, we can do it. I can't answer a beautiful answer. We just we can say, no, don't do it. And then see if they do it, Maybe we can excite the public to actually not want to do it. But scientists often suck at that. Sorry, third time I use that word here, I'm very sorry. But yeah, I just want to say, maybe we need some help to get the country against it, for example.
We have a couple more questions, and we are getting short of time. And I want to ask, and this will be actually to our next or final speaker, Nils Gunnar. There's a question about what the Polar Institute and the Marine Research Institute are doing to save the kelp forest devastation. Are you working with the kelp forests? Would you like to answer that? or?
At least we are doing quite a lot of research on it, and we plan to go into it more. We know there is an increasing, what should I say, knowledge or understanding that the kelp forests are very important for the carbon budget of the ocean, among other things. Also, they are important nurseries for small fish and so on. So they have an important role in the ocean, and how to manage this resource and in the future will become a very important question, and we are now ramping up our research around these questions.
Thank you very much. And with that, I think we thank our panelists.
I don't know. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for the panelists for a very insightful and interesting discussion and at times amusing answers. Thank you. And thank you so much to Nalan for moderating. So, as I said, we now have the closing remarks from Nils Gunnar Kvamsted, the director of the Norwegian Institute of Marine Research. So I'll hand the floor to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you very much also for giving me the opportunity to close this session. It's a nice task to have, because I don't need to prepare so much, but on the other hand, it's a little bit work underway, and I don't understand my own notes. So, but still, yeah. Also, thank you very much to the organizers for engaging young leaders and addressing this issue. I mean, you or the young leaders are the leaders that have to deal with climate and biodiversity changes created by earlier generations. And it is of vital importance that we have platforms like this to transfer the best knowledge, tools, experience, and so on to you to take on with your future work. This is also, of course, there are also a lot of ethics in these kind of questions, and I don't think that should be unmentioned here also. So, what challenges has come up here today concerning managing of marine ecosystems? Global how to manage marine resources under global warming, how that evolves and affects us, geopolitics, other human activities, shipping, tourism, science, even scientific cruises are a stressing factor on marine ecosystems. Not negligible, actually. Also, people live in the Arctic and want a sustainable and just life or use of nature resources. So, of course, there is a lot of important reasons to go into this important question. I come from a research perspective, and I think it has been said here that I think everybody agree that sustainable management should be based on knowledge. But also, it has been mentioned, and that's important, there are also values involved here. So we have a choice. We should not manage only based on scientific definitions of sustainability and so on. It's a very important that we are knowledge-based, but I think also it was important that it was brought up here, values. So keep that in mind. So, but still, I'm a researcher, so I am, of course, interested in the knowledge. So what kind of knowledge is important in managing these resources? Well, as was said here, everything basically. But we need to put all these bits and pieces together to achieve a system understanding. We need a deep system understanding. How the marine ecosystem work, how the climate system work, how they interact. And, and this is because, as it was said here, we are in a change. So if you have a system understanding, that's the, in a way, the scientific view on that is that this is the best way or tool you can have to assess how the development and how human factors can affect and how these will manifest itself on the ecosystem in the future. Because these are tools that we can build, so we can build scenarios. We don't know, we know the big main kind of evolving structures here, but there is a lot of variability involved and uncertainty. So we need scenarios, we need information about uncertainty to take the right decisions when you are managing these resources. And, and also I think one mistake that has been done earlier in managing climate marine resources is that we have not been able to use the things that we know, that the knowledge that we have now. You need to be aware what we know, what are the uncertainties, but we should not avoid taking decisions. Don't push research in front of you and say, well, we can decide on this a little bit later until we get more knowledge. In many cases, that can be misuse of science. My favorite example is the Oslo Fjord. It's a very polluted fjord close to Oslo, as you know. You don't need basic research to take the right decisions to clean up that place. So be aware of what you know. The knowledge that we have today, accumulated knowledge, can be a good support to do many right decisions. And then you need to know which data, what knowledge is ahead of us that we need to achieve to refine these decisions or do better in the future. Don't be too late. So, at the very end, I will just mention that putting together bits and pieces to achieve system understanding needs cross-disciplinarity. Liz also show you the different ecosystems. These are deeply connected, so we also need international cooperation. So the ability to work with other people with other sciences from other countries will be a very, very, very important ability in the future. So I think I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Nils Gunnar. And thank you, everyone, again, for attending this session. Thanks to all the speakers, all the panelists. It's been very insightful, very interesting. Let me just also take the opportunity to remind you and encourage you all about our conference in April, Ecosystem-Based Management in a Rapidly Warming Arctic. Please sign up and register. It's going to be great, and you will see some familiar faces and a lot of new ones. And it's going to be juicy, interesting discussions about ecosystem-based management in the Arctic. Welcome. Thank you.